Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of For the Fans podcast. We are back. It's week eight. Week eight. Had to double check.
Yup. We're getting into it, that's for sure.
Halfway through the season, and it feels so good, but also so bad because I still have no idea what is happening around the league at the moment.
It felt like 2 weeks ago we were pretty confident as far as who the good teams were, and now I'm just very lost.
The 49ers are bad, and Brock Purdy's going to be out this week.
Right, and it's not even just the 49ers. So the Dolphins, for example, we thought that they would be pretty good, right? But the
They,
problem is they took the loss, and it looked like they couldn't even really get anything going. But at the same time, who they played against was the Eagles, and I know we're going to get into this, but the Eagles had a lot of penalties that were not called. You know what I mean? Like there were
mm-hmm.
tons of penalties against the Dolphins, but there were no penalties that were not called that were called against the Eagles. That should have been.
Yeah,
So
there was the biggest thing that I saw was that a lot of people were just like, "This is a very questionable game at the moment."
well, and I know we like to go into this every week about how irritated and concerned we are when it comes to the refs and the calls that they're making.
But I mean, this
But
felt very egregious.
yes,
But I mean,
especially if it's 10 on one side but nothing on the other.
yeah, but then we also had the Bills losing to the Patriots, which was surprising.
It's very true.
We had
And
the
I think we had
Lions
another.
getting almost shut out.
Yep, that's right. That's the other one that I was like, okay, didn't see that coming.
And I will say,
And
Browns and Colts was very competitive.
but there's still the question of the two defensive penalties that came at the very end that kind of gave the Browns the win.
Yep. A
But
lot, a
before
lot
we
of
jump into this,
questions
because
happened this week.
we're gonna cover a lot of these here. Before we get into that, we do need to go over our usual injury report. Couple of these on there are pretty common knowledge. You got John Robinson with his illness, which is obviously igniting a lot of controversy for the Falcons right now, as there could be a punishment because they didn't acknowledge him as injured, even though he hardly played. It was weird,
It was
to say
very
the
weird.
least.
Felt bad for everyone who had him on their fantasy team.
Yeah, for sure. What was it? 0.3 points is basically all he scored
Yep,
for one carry, 3 yards.
just
Okay,
about.
and then you got Jerome. Yeah, you got Jerome Ford with an ankle injury. Deshaun Watson, they're taking a look at his shoulder again. Christian Watson's got a knee injury. Jalen Hurts is questionable with his knee, but he's probably okay. Seems pretty likely. Um, Chris Godwin with neck is also labeled as questionable. We'll need to see the timetable as far as what's going to happen with those players going into Week 8. It's likely, though, that Dawson Knox and Nick Bolton are both going to need wrist surgery. They're labeled as doubtful and probably out for several weeks. Previously noted as well, Deebo Samuel's got a shoulder injury, which is like a couple of hairline fractures. And then Pat Freiermuth, hamstring injury. They're going to be out for a time due to their injuries. And then as far as quarterbacks go, no official timetable given yet on injuries for Daniel Jones with his neck and Justin Fields with his dislocated thumb. Jimmy Garoppolo, though, is expected to play Week 8 after his back injury, and the Raiders could really use him, despite how mid he actually is.
And I will also say this isn't on here. Brock Purdy has officially entered concussion protocol as of today.
That is true. Yeah, that's a good point. Which
Uh,
means,
that happened like a couple hours ago. So
yes, which means, at least for the ones that we generally know, as of right now, it's undetermined who might end up being the QB for the Browns, depending on Deshaun Watson's situation, whether it is PJ Walker or Dorian Thompson. But as far as the other ones that we're looking at here, Sam Darnold will start for the 49ers. Tyrod Taylor is going to be here for the Giants again, and Tyson Bagent, Mr. Div 2 quarterback, will start for the Bears again.
hey, maybe you guys can get another win with him at quarterback.
Hey, well, it's like what I showed you earlier this week. I think we started winning as soon as Chase Claypool was off the roster.
Yep. Chase Claypool, if he's on your roster, you start losing because the Dolphins, since activating him, or what, now 0-2 since activating him?
Yep, I think so,
Ugh. It's very ugly.
for sure. Hey, let's get into our wows and our woes here. Let's start off with what was our Thursday night football matchup, which I happened to not be anywhere near my phone. at the time that this game was going on. So when I turned my phone back on, I've got a million messages from
Yep.
you
Yep.
talking about give me a play-by-play of the game.
Hey, I got quiet for a while because I'm like, I know I'm bothering him. I'm gonna just leave it simmer for a bit.
The funny thing is you weren't bothering me at all. I just didn't know that you had. Hey, really quickly though, before you jump into this though, this is another one just to kind of keep an eye on. Apparently, Tyreek Hill did not practice today because of a hip injury.
No, I need him for my fantasy league.
A lot of people do. He's the best person in fantasy league right now.
Which is
He's
why I
basically
picked
the
him
one
up in
carrying
almost
them.
every league. I need him.
Yep,
Oh
we
man.
will see what happens there.
Oh man. Anyways, Thursday night football. I was blowing up your phone, and I got quiet, and then it became a really close game, and I'm like, okay, I need to like commentate and do play-by-plays because what is happening right now, I just can't believe what is happening at the moment. It was so bad. I was like, oh, we're up 24 to 6. We're up 24 to 9. I feel pretty good, and it's like, oh, the score is 24 to 24. I don't like this anymore.
Yeah.
And it literally came down
Uh,
to the last play of the game.
right, and there's a lot of like craziness that kind of happened with that. Obviously, Alvin Kamara was having a good game.
Hmm.
And then it's more just what kind of came, it came from the offense there, from Derek Carr himself as well. Not throwing necessarily good passes, getting mad at Chris Olave for not running, kind of giving up mid route, even though it clearly was going over into the sideline.
It
I
was,
wonder
but
if
at the
that's
same time, I was like, from what everybody was confused on, it was more of a did Chris Olave give up mid route, or did Chris Olave think they were running a different play, and Derek Carr thought that they were going straight vertical, and Olave thought they were going to do something else, and it just was a miscommunication. So that's something I was like, huh, I have no
that
idea.
would make more sense. That would make more sense other than just Chris Olave deciding not to speed up there on that play, but instead deciding to speed up with his car and get arrested like he did.
Gosh,
I had to make mention of it. Come on.
it's funny and sad because it's literally when I was looking up what people were thinking about this, they're like, he's known as a speed receiver. I'm just like, oh, well, he definitely is now.
Absolutely. And I know the biggest reason that, obviously, how do I put this? There is, I feel like a couple of years ago, this sort of thing would happen, to someone, say, a high profile athlete, and no one would really bat an eye. But since what's happened with Henry Ruggs first, and then also with Jalen Carter before he came into the league, it's definitely gotten a lot more scrutiny. That's for sure.
Hmm. But so the Saints struggled early and then came back
Yeah.
only to lose. Now, I had high hopes for the Saints because they had a good defense. The offensive line for the Jazz was a little banged up. Trevor Lawrence was a little bit banged up. The thing that I found to be very impressive on the Jaguar side was that their O line did the job, missing a couple of people, and they have the season best of the fewest quarterback pressure percentage allowed against a strong and good Saints defense. It was like
Yeah.
8.4 pressure percentage.
Pretty good.
Lawrence never got hit while being injured, which is big time.
And it certainly helps when it comes to the whole thing of, they had some banged up injuries, at least for the offensive line for the
Hmm.
Jaguars, but hey, they held strong.
They did. And with that win, they won 4 games in 19 days, which is impressive by any team standards to do that many games, win all of them in
Hmm.
that short amount of time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and for that reason, they're sitting fairly comfortably now at the top of their division.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are ranking them as like the second best AFC team because they beat the Bills. They had a short week on injury against a good Saints defense and won that game. And some people are like,
Hmm.
oh, it was a very close game, so they shouldn't be ranked that high. But the thing is, at the end of the day, all that matters is the win.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, hey, they're looking good within their division. I mean, technically they're in a three-way tie for the second best record in
Hmm.
the division or in the conference. But I think it speaks a lot more to that because the Jaguars seem like they're more consistent than, say, the Baltimore Ravens or the Miami Dolphins, who they're tied with right now, record-wise.
Yep, and I will say, it looks like they're getting their momentum right now, and that's crucial at this point in the season.
Definitely.
It's also the first
Better to
time they've
pick it
been
up now than later.
5-2 since like 2003. So been 20 years since they had this record.
Definitely makes you feel good, huh?
Oh, it makes me feel very good. I'm like, oh yay, we're winning. This is what winning feels like. I almost forgot. I had
Yeah, I've
2017, and
already
that was
forgotten.
kind of it.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem though. When you look at the Saints, though, just on the flip side, just kind of touching on the end here, their biggest issue is, you know, for a bit there, it almost looked like they had a chance with their defense to kind of
Hmm.
solidify themselves at the top of the defense, or at the excuse me, defense at the top of their division. They're slipping now. It's Yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, the Buccaneers have lost their last two, which we're not really surprised about. But the Falcons, they're 4-3 right now, and they're at the top of the division. Kind of a rough play for the Saints because I feel like some of the losses the Saints have been taking, they haven't necessarily been really awful losses, but they've been
No.
heartbreakers, and they've changed things
And I think what
for
is,
that
I
team.
think the Saints need to step up their offense. I think their defense is great. Their offense seems to be struggling.
It kind of goes back to the whole thought that a lot of people have that Derek Carr is clearly not the answer in the quarterback position. And I think because of that, some people are really thinking that the Saints will definitely gun at either trading or drafting a quarterback next season.
Which I mean, I will say this: they should have won that game. Like all bias aside,
Mhm.
they should have won the game. And I hate to bring this up because he's a young guy and he'll get better. But Foster Moreau had the game-winning catch in his hands and just
Yeah,
dropped it.
kind of like Jake Moody against the Browns with the game-winning field goal. Didn't happen.
Yeah, which
It was an opportunity. It was
it
possible.
it can happen to anybody. He just couldn't do it, and I felt bad because he was very upset that he dropped it because he knows he let his team
He
down.
was. Yes. Yeah.
And I applaud him because that's a player that you want on your team. Is that a mistake happens and he takes it that hard and is like not wanting to get off the field and taking it very personally. And I guarantee you he is working harder than anybody to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Absolutely. All
Okay,
right. Should we move on to the next matchup?
next matchup, we got the Miami Dolphins versus the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Eagles won 31-17. We touched on this a little bit. We thought it was gonna be a good, fun, high offensive game, but Dolphins offense didn't look as explosive. Their defense allowed big plays. But I think the biggest news stories to come out of this, the Dolphins had 10 penalties against them, and the Eagles didn't have a single one where multiple people, fans and analysts alike, were scratching their heads and saying, why do the Eagles not have a penalty for a very obvious penalty from everybody watching?
Hmm. Absolutely. And I feel like that would have changed a lot of the situation with the game here because the Eagles get the win here. You're neglecting some of like the parts that were, really changed the whole dynamic, even with the penalties aside. Tua threw two interceptions, Jalen Hurts threw a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with that being said, the Eagles essentially still ran away with this and made their statement, if you will. And the classic Tua Tagovailoa versus Jalen Hurts debate, which has been going on since their Alabama days. Um,
Oh boy.
but and I feel like we could have appreciated this game for what it was, but because of the penalties controversy, it changed that.
Yeah, there's just so much controversy with this game that like we were waiting for this game. We're like, okay, this game is going to decide who's a contender and who's a pretender, and I feel like
Right.
we didn't get that.
No, because here's the thing. I still feel like Miami very much has a chance to be good in this. Do I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl? I'm not sold on that anymore. But I'm also not sold on the Eagles either.
Oh, and to also be fair, because I don't know if you saw this, apparently the officiating crew for this game has been reprimanded and suspended before for inappropriate conduct when officiating.
There you have it.
So it was very much of a, oh, this is the same officiating crew that has recently been suspended for kind of favoring the game towards one side.
Was it the Chiefs?
Oh, I don't remember. I think it was actually like a college team.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyways,
Well,
this game was shrouded in controversy. I want to love it more, but I felt like this game needed to be talked about, as I think the biggest woe from this game was just the poor officiating that kind of disappointed everybody and kind of sucked the life out of this game.
and with that being said, the Dolphins are now 5-2. The Eagles are 6-1.
I still have faith in
So
both of these teams to do well this season.
yes, I do too, and I think they're both going to be one of those teams that potentially. I'd say for both of them, I would not be surprised to see both of these teams in their respective conference championship games
Mm-hmm.
in the postseason.
All good.
Okay, moving on here. We've got my picks. The first one we got to talk about the Cleveland Browns and Indianapolis Colts game. Browns won 39-38. For the Browns, at least, they're continuing to find ways to win without Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb. Watson, because he went down with his injury. Obviously, we know what happened with Nick Chubb. Does this change the future at quarterback for this team? That's kind of something that I think some people may want to consider, because Deshaun has got a lot of money on his contract and paid big, and yet it seems like this team is winning more without him.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm at the point where I'm like, the Browns are kind of in a hole at the moment because they're stuck with this contract. There's no one that's going to want to take this contract away from them, and they don't have any real way to get rid of it themselves.
But at the same time, it's not full panic mode for the Browns, because they're 4-2. So they're very much in the race for the AFC North. They've got the same record as the Steelers, and they're only one game behind because they've had a bye week already against the Ravens. But at the same time, too, you got the Bengals, who I think are going to creep up there at some point, too. They're not too far behind. It's a very, very competitive race, which is why I think it was so important for the Browns to be able to get this win here. But again, controversy when it comes to officiating, because the NFL has even admitted that those two penalties were incorrect, that the refs messed up. And without those penalties, it seemed like the Colts would win, which is saying something for the Colts. They're becoming a potential, at least wild card team for their division, even without Anthony Richardson. But taking that loss absolutely hurt them.
Yeah, I think the NFL has openly admitted that this week was a very bad week officiating wise, and that they're looking into ways to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Right, but how does that get fixed? That's a big thing. And can they actually be
So
held
hard.
accountable?
Yeah, it's so hard, which is why we brought it up earlier in an episode, is that for me, I was saying I will love coaches to be able to challenge certain penalties again.
Yeah.
I think it's something that should happen and be brought back, because if you're wrong on the penalty, you're wrong on the penalty and you lose your challenge and you cost something big. But at the same time, penalties like this, where if the Colts were able to challenge one of these penalties, it probably would have ended in the Colts win.
Well, and it's absolutely needed in this case too, because of what has happened. I mean, it would have been a different situation if they had been able to call that and said, "Hey, hang on, this was wrong." You know what I mean?
Or they could do booth reviews, because if I remember right, like within a certain amount of time left in the game, coaches are no longer able to challenge plays and calls anymore. So why not turn that over to booth review at that point?
Right. Well, and then again, at the same time with the booth review, I feel like there's some
Yeah.
confusion there too.
Yeah, but
But
I mean, it would at least like be able to slow it down, and they'd be able to look at the penalty closely and have a more better grasp and visual on it, rather than so, because as we've seen, some refs have thrown a penalty and they'll pick it up and they'll be like, no penalty actually happened. Continue on with the game.
hmm
Anyways,
yeah,
I feel like we drilled this enough right now.
right. It's just there's still just it's a lot of frustration surrounding it. I think that's really all we can say about that. But really quickly here, I got to finish, of course, when it comes to our wows and our woes. Our last game we have to talk about is the Ravens and the Lions. The Ravens winning, of course, 38-6. Absolute blowout that we were not expecting. The Ravens looked like their beginning of season selves. Everyone looked healthy. Lamar was huge. The offense flowed well. The defense was great. And the Ravens continue off this win to maintain the lead in their division. It's a very competitive division. I think it's certainly possible. I'd like to see what happens with the Bengals if they all of a sudden start to gain momentum. That's really the only team that in the long run I'm concerned about when it comes to the AFC North, outside of the Ravens. I don't think that the Browns and Steelers can maintain their winning right
Yeah.
now. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Now, can Lamar make himself an MVP candidate?
He's done it
I don't know.
before.
Definitely got to. Yep, and he's got to be more consistent, I would say, for that to happen. Because right now he's got some tough competition. Whether that is on one hand, you got Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen,
Patrick
Tua
Mahomes.
Tagovailoa, Christian McCaffrey should honestly be in there too.
I think he's on there. He's just like number 12 on the list.
I know that's frustrates me. He should be in the top 3.
Yeah, I don't
But
disagree.
I think that's the situation with the Ravens. All that can be said there is that was a good game for them. They should play more like that, and they're going to be just fine. Now the Lions, on the other hand, they look super lost, especially without David Montgomery, who's honestly, in my opinion, he's the MVP and linchpin of their success. He runs through, they hold well, and that wasn't happening in this game. Not to say that Jahmyr Gibbs was bad. He actually had a good game, which is saying something because we were looking for that to happen. But what really went wrong for Detroit?
It's so
What's there to
hard
say
to
about
say.
that?
I'm like, it's so hard to say. It just their defense
It
did
wasn't a good
nothing.
game.
Their offense did nothing. Like the entire team looked like the Lions that we know and have rooted for, rather than the Lions we've gotten to know and love this season.
Right. Well, and I think it's one of those things where, in this case, the Ravens, the way their team is set up, they just have the Lions number. They're just that type of team that can take down the Lions. You know what I mean? It's not saying the Lions are bad. It's just that the Ravens have their number. Is the best way to put it. The best way I can describe it is we basically have the same situation here in college football. And I'm probably going to say something that maybe some NFL fans might find slanderous with what's coming up, but um, Caleb Williams has now lost back-to-back games in
Mm-hmm.
college football for USC. First to Notre Dame and then to the University of Utah this past weekend. And with that, that essentially is a death sentence for USC to potentially make it to the college football playoffs, which brings a lot of people to start saying, well, hey, Caleb Williams is not going to win another Heisman. And if his team is not going to have any chance really anymore of going to the national championship game,
Yep.
and Caleb Williams will skip out on the bowl game, maybe it's time to sit out and rest in preparation for the draft.
Yeah, I've been seeing that pop around here and there.
And kind of a lot of that discussion generated from the same thing I was using with the comparison of the Ravens and the Lions. The Ravens have the Lions number. The University of Utah has USC's number. And so with that being said, I feel like that's the situation that we saw here in the NFL. And I did at least want to put that plug in there for college because I know we don't definitely talk about college football too much here, but Caleb Williams is obviously the biggest name coming up in the next draft as far as which team could take him number 1 overall at quarterback. And there's some questions around that too because hey, here we are, and maybe he's not as good as people say he is.
See, I'm gonna be so bold, and I'm gonna say, from what I've seen of Caleb Williams and everybody talking about him, they're saying, "Oh, he's the best college prospect in football ever." I don't believe it. I am one of the
No,
people. I am so against it, and he reminds me so much of a Johnny Manziel.
right, right.
That's me.
Well,
But that's a hot
and
take, and a lot of people hate it.
but here's the thing: is Shane, it gets brought up like almost every year. I feel like when there's a big quarterback coming up, they said the same thing about Trevor Lawrence. Now, did it turn out to be true? Yeah, it does. They were saying the same thing about Joe Burrow. Did that turn out to be true? Yeah, you bet. But they were talking that way about Tua, and Tua wasn't even taken number 1 overall. They were talking that way about Kyler Murray. Has Kyler Murray panned out?
Nope.
Not exactly.
Johnny Manziel was the greatest thing of all time. Nope. Tim Tebow, one of the greatest college football players to ever play, did not pan
Yep.
out.
Uh, Cam Newton fizzled out real quickly, and he was looking real good there for a while.
At least
What
he
other
went to a
ones can we
Super
throw
Bowl.
in there? Yeah, that's true. Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen.
Those are horrible examples, but they're accurate. They fit about like, oh, look how good they're going to be.
Yeah, Josh Rosen has been a Voyager and like a third string quarterback on every team so far.
So here's what I'm saying is I don't really want to read in the hype of Caleb Williams. And I didn't even when the Bears were doing horrible. I said, no, we've got to try and make this work with Justin Fields.
I
Because
agree.
I never believed the Caleb Williams hype.
I find it funny that we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, well, and that's the thing. Maybe he does end up being really, really good. But the fact that someone else brought this up too, that Caleb Williams basically functions in Lincoln Riley as the coach of USC, his system. And the other quarterbacks, trying to find the word there, quarterbacks that have been brought up in Lincoln Riley's system that have gone to the NFL have not been lights out. Baker Mayfield is one example. He hasn't been amazing. Kyler Murray, we touched on him earlier. He hasn't been great either. So there are just a few examples right there of players that we talk about. Oh, they're going to be really good. Oh, they're going to be so amazing, and that doesn't turn out to be that way. So
I feel like the quarterback draft or the quarterback class this season is going to be very, very weak. So they are hyping this man up to potentially get another team to trade up for him.
And see, I disagree with that first part of the statement.
Okay.
Because I do think that this quarterback class is actually going to be very, very good.
See, I'll trust you because you're the college guy and
right.
I'm not. But I've only heard Caleb Williams or Deion Sanders' son.
Drake May from North Carolina is another really good one to kind of consider.
I've heard his name, but everybody's saying, no, he's a trap. Don't fall for this trap.
Yeah, I will see what happens there. I just think the best way to describe it is Drake May actually could be decent. But the thing is they were putting Caleb Williams up on a pedestal with essentially Caleb Williams is the first quarterback taken in the draft, and then Drake May is like the next one. But they're saying there's such a huge gap between the two of them. I think they're closer than we think.
But I mean, let's even look at like this year's draft class. Like Bryce Young was the guy to get first overall. We saw that because the Panthers traded up for it. Then it was C.J. Stroud, and then Anthony Richardson was talked about. But every single person said, "Oh, Anthony Richardson will not pan out in the NFL." And honestly, him and C.J. Stroud are probably my two favorite rookie quarterbacks to watch play, and they are both very good.
Absolutely. Now, it's a shame what happened to Anthony Richardson, but hey, injuries happen. But I will say this, and I think there's probably a lot of agreement there. I almost wonder if maybe the Panthers right now are going, oh, we messed up. We picked the wrong guy first.
I mean, have you heard the rumors and the stories about the Panthers head coach not wanting to take Bryce Young, but the ownership and the GM insisted that they grab Bryce Young?
I haven't heard that, but that doesn't surprise me because of that household name that Bryce Young essentially had before going into the NFL.
Mostly from the fact head coach, if I remember right, I think he wanted C.J. Stroud.
I could see that. I could see Frank Reich taking the call and saying, hey, I would rather prefer C.J. Stroud. I feel like he's going to function better than Bryce Young. And you know what? That's a good point too. Again, I know we need to wrap this up here because we're talking about the NFL, but here we are venturing down the rabbit hole of college football,
we're
which I love.
And these are prospects or people joining the NFL.
Exactly.
We're still on target.
And don't get me wrong, I love talking about college, but I think here's the thing too that I need to say when it comes to my experience, looking at the college football scene and stuff like that. C.J. Stroud played for a pretty decent Ohio State team. Ohio State is definitely one of the blue blood teams within the college football scene. But the thing is, they have not been dominant as they have been in seasons past. They have not won the Big Ten title in a while. Michigan's been doing that for them. I won't go into that one too much. I would probably love to talk more about that. But what I'm basically saying behind that is, with Ohio State, there is not like this big, ooh, wow, look how good Ohio State is and stuff like that. They've been good, but they haven't been absolutely lights out spectacular is what I'm saying when it comes to that.
Right.
Now, let's look at the other side with Bryce Young who comes from Alabama. Now, granted, Alabama is about as blue blood as you can get when it comes to college. But the thing is a lot of analysts have been saying that Alabama, they've been struggling when it comes to things, especially on the offensive side, within the past few years. And Bryce Young, when he was there at Alabama, was able to kind of hide that, which kind of showed this inconsistency, this decline that was happening with Bama. And for a while there, Bryce Young was covering up. Now, Bryce Young is gone. Now, most people aren't even talking about Alabama. Alabama's not in the top 5 right now for college football. Not necessarily horrible, but what I'm saying with that is Bryce Young could thrive in Alabama's system. Now that he's out of there, it's a different story, and we're not really seeing this massively impressive player. It's just like Mac Jones, in my opinion.
Yep. And the Panthers are
Oh,
currently 0-6 without their first round pick this year.
exactly. So I won't say too much more on the matter because obviously we need to talk about trending up, trending down, and then we need to get into our matchups for the fun. But that's just something to keep in mind. I know we went on a tangent here because it kind of just came from us talking about the Ravens and the Lions, but it's important to know, Shane. It's important to keep in mind the situation of what the draft prospects look like next year, and the fact is they might not be as good as the media is hyping them up to be.
Yep. I would agree. Except for Travis Hunter. I like Travis Hunter.
Oh yeah, but he needs to pick a side.
Oh man, I would love to see a professional NFL player playing both sides. Be
Oh, you're
hold
gonna
on,
wear the man
hold on,
out.
hold on. It'd be horrible. He would get gassed. He would get injured. Is like a lot of stuff is likely. I would just like to see it once or twice. Like he is a wide receiver, but let's just say like they want to give him a break from wide receiver. They're like, hey, let's shake things up. Go play corner.
I hope when he does come in that he does go wide receiver. I feel like he'd be a very
Yeah.
dynamic wide receiver.
Or get this. Play both sides, but not both sides the whole game. But like 1 week he's a wide receiver. The next week he lines up on defense as a corner.
Maybe
See,
it would mess
I
with the
think that'd be
scheme a
fun.
little bit. I feel like, but
It,
that
it
would
could
be a good one.
it could mess with the team, but
Yeah,
also it could mess with opponents because they're like, wait, what's this wide receiver doing playing corner?
true.
I don't know. I just think it'd be fun to see for a little bit and then have him pick a side.
For sure. He looks good. Marvin Harrison looks good.
Oh,
There's a
Marvin Harrison
it's
looks
just it's
real good.
there's questions on the quarterbacks. That's all.
Yep. All right, trending up. Who do you have trending up?
Baltimore Ravens, the big one.
Yeah, Ravens, I think, solidified a trending up this past week.
Yep, and honestly, I think we have to give Jacksonville Jaguars their flowers too.
Heck yeah! 4 games, 19 days. Doug Peterson got
Another
his
team.
ice cream.
There you go. Another team that at least needs to be put trending up because I mean it's a big win. It happened the way that it did, and they were really struggling beforehand. You got to put the New England Patriots on there.
Yeah, I was still shocked that the Patriots won. For me, in my head, I still credit that to being division rivalry games, so those can go either way in my head. But
That's true. Yeah.
I will reserve because my guess or my pick wouldn't necessarily have been great, but I would probably would set the Colts because the Colts look good without their starting quarterback.
Problem is though, whether you
Hmm.
rely whether you're talking about the officiating or not, they're 3-4 right
That's
now.
true. But I will say this. I won't put them on trending up, but keep an eye on them.
Yeah. No, that I agree on.
All right, trending down. Oh boy. I think we gotta do the 49ers.
We do absolutely.
That
And another thing is, yeah. Let me throw
yeah.
this out here because I know obviously we'd want to be talking about, let's say, the Detroit Lions are trending down or the Miami Dolphins are trending down, but another two teams that I really do think need to be mentioned in trending down are the Green Bay Packers and the Las Vegas Raiders.
See, I was
They're bad.
hesitant on both of those for the main reason of I felt like they were always kind of down.
Right, but how much more down do you get than losing to the Denver Broncos and the Chicago Bears when you're at least supposed to have a couple of halfway decent players?
Hear me out though. My trending down for at least one of them, the Buffalo Bills.
That one I agree with,
I was gonna say
100%.
they lost to the Patriots. They won by 5 points against the Giants in a score of 9-14, and then they lost to the Jazz in London.
And they're 4-3.
And,
That's not what we were expecting to see the situations be for the Bills.
and all of the fans are blaming jet lag and all this other stuff. They're like, "Oh, it's jet lag. Oh, it's this." I'm just like, "No, no, you guys just lost. Just accept that you lost because you can't have any excuse when you guys lose to the Patriots."
Yeah, definitely swap out one of the Packers or Raiders for the Bills. That's a big
I'll
one.
say Raiders.
Yeah, for sure. 'Cause, I mean, the Raiders situation there, obviously playing. You're not going to win if you have Brian Hoyer as your as your backup QB, now becoming your starter.
All right, let's move on to our matchup so we can get to our For the Fun because I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, that'll be good. Okay, Thursday Night Football, we've got the Buccaneers and the Bills. We both agree, even though the Bills are not doing great right now, they'll get a win over the Bucs.
This is their time to move out of the trending down.
Yes, exactly. Matchup monster for this game. You know, it's funny. You brought him up a lot. I kind of like the James Cook pick this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll go with that.
I'm going to say Dalton Kincaid.
Hey, that'll be a good one. I'd like to see that.
Dawson Knox is out, so that means he's stepping up into that number 1 spot.
Yep, no, that's a very good point. Hey, New York Giants and New York Jets. Now, we disagree on this one. You say the Giants get the win. I say the Jets get the win. Now, I believe that the Jets are kind of essentially the more complete football team. I believe the Giants have basically, been getting lucky.
Yep.
If you will. But I want to hear your take.
I think this is going to be an upset match. I think the Jets are the favorites, and I honestly just think this is going to be an upset because Saquon should be good to go, and I think he's going to be the reason they win.
Even with his elbow injury nagging him at all?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Jets defense, big one. I mean, honestly, I feel like that's going to be the biggest thing that they're going to wreak havoc on the Giants O-line.
See, I thought you would honestly say, because this man's coming back, Breece Hall.
I'm more scared about how that Giants O-line, which is super shaky, is going to react to the Jets defense.
I'll put down Breece Hall as the other. It's going to be a running back and defensive battle.
Okay, yeah, I take that.
Because, I mean, Rodgers is out, Daniel Jones is out, or injured,
right.
Whatever.
Yep.
All right.
That's a good point.
Jazz versus the Steelers.
Okay, so we agree Jaguars win. Now, it's funny. Originally, you said it's not going to be a close game. And I was going to say it's going to be a close game. But now I'm agreeing with you because the thing is in the past, the Jaguars, it's kind of like the Lions and the Ravens. The Ravens kind of have had, or at least in this game and maybe in past, have had the Lions number. The Jaguars have had the Steelers number.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about him a couple of times, but Duckmaster was a giant Steelers fan, and he has told me multiple times, he's like, for whatever reason, I'm always terrified when the Steelers have to face the Jaguars. Don't know what it is, but the Steelers struggle.
So who's your matchup monster in this game, then?
You know, man, it's so hard to say, but I think I'm going to go with Christian Kirk.
Okay, I'm going to be wacky out here, and I'm going to say Calvin Ridley has a good game.
Oh, man, I would love to see it. I will say, I think the last time these two teams faced each other, it was the 2017 playoff run.
Okay, yeah, right.
Which did not end well for the Steelers. They were very upset that day.
Yes, that's right.
It was a good, close game, but that was not a happy day for them. Anyways, Eagles versus the Commanders. We got a divisional matchup right here. We're both saying the Eagles, but you're saying it's going to be the Eagles, and it's going to be a close game.
It was into overtime and won on a field goal last time they played each other.
That's true.
Matchup monster for this game. Go ahead and give me A.J. Brown.
Yeah, he seems to be the front man all over again.
Yep, absolutely. Rams and Cowboys. We disagree on this one. You say the Rams are going to win. I say the Cowboys are going to win. I just don't really have faith in the Rams getting their offense fully moving yet, despite Cooper Kupp coming back, but despite the fact that there seems to be a really good chemistry between both him and Puka Nacua. I still feel like the Cowboys' defense is what is going to make things difficult for the Rams, at least in slowing down their production on offense, which will allow Dak Prescott to squeak by and get a win.
So you're saying the Cowboys' defense?
I don't think there's anyone else I can put on there. I mean, maybe CeeDee Lamb. Maybe he has a really good game, but I don't know. I'm more looking at the defense than Lamb.
What I think this game's going to be is going to be the Rams' offense versus the Cowboys' defense.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to say Puka.
Puka Nacua, okay.
Puka Nacua.
All right. Vikings and Packers. Now, we say the Vikings are going to win, which I think is very accurate, especially how the Packers played against the freaking Broncos. Matchup monster for this game, got to be Jordan Addison, right?
Heck yeah, I love Jordan Addison right now. He is proving to be I would say the best receiver from this first round rookie class.
Even with Zay Flowers in there?
I would say even with Zay, I think
Okay.
Jordan Addison just impressed me with this past week where he quite literally strips the ball and prevents an interception and turns it into a 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that was really impressive. That's a
That
good point.
that just sold me on him. I will say Zay Flowers, mad respect him. I think he's great. Definitely better than JSN and Quentin Johnson.
Uh-huh.
But Addison and Flowers are definitely the best two from the first round.
Yes, I agree with that. Um, Falcons and Titans. Look, the Titans are terrible, and they're fully embracing the rebuild here, which
I
we may
think
get
they're
into
having
in
a
a further
fire
pod.
sale right now.
Yeah, Falcons. They're not necessarily a great team, but they'll get this win. Matchup monster for this game with Bijan still being shaky. I'm gonna give it to Tyler Algier.
Tyler Algier. I think I'll agree with you. I don't really like the Falcons team. And
Kind of a mess,
Kyle
isn't
Pitts
it?
finally had a down week after 2 good weeks, so who knows?
He had a really cool catch.
He
Say,
did. I will
yeah,
say, I'm like, wow. Imagine if they actually used Kyle Pitts like they were supposed to.
right. They need a new coach for that first.
Oh man, they need a new
Maybe
team.
and a quarterback too. No, don't say new team because the thing is, the running back room looks great. I feel like Drake London can be really good. Kyle Pitts could totally be good. Desmond Ritter is not the answer. I think Arthur Smith is not the answer at coach.
I feel like all the good players that you listed were literally players that were drafted in the past 3 years.
Yeah, I'm not saying the rest of the team is amazing,
to
except
to
for maybe
me,
AJ Terrell.
they get a pass because they're still on their rookie contracts. The rookies get, or the rookie contract people get to stay. Get rid of the rest of the team.
And at the end of the day, Shane, they're still the number one team in their division right now.
That's not saying anything. They have the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the 0-6 Panthers.
I'm just saying, a win is a win.
Just, I mean, there are 4-3, so they're up there with the Seahawks, the Cowboys, the Bills.
Yeah,
Oh man, I love football at times.
yeah. Okay, how about the Patriots and the Dolphins? We both say the Dolphins win. Matchup monster in this game. If Tyreek Hill is not playing, I say give it to Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I think Waddle's gonna be the safe call. I mean, and is Raheem Mostert gonna be playing?
He's actually kind of having an injury right now, but I don't know
Yeah,
how serious it is.
because I'm like Devon Chain is still on IR right now.
And probably will be for at least another week or two.
Man, I can't wait till he gets back.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, let's stick with Waddle.
Okay. All right.
All right, we
And
got the
we've got
Saints versus the Colts.
now here's the thing. I got the Colts here in this game because I feel like they have the potential to score high and do very well. They just got robbed
Oh,
this
they did.
past week, and I think they're a better team than the Saints.
I mean, what I think this game's gonna come down to, the Saints almost beat their Colts division rival, the Jaguars, and the Jaguars got a clean sweep of the Colts this year. I think
Okay,
this is
yeah.
a very testimony game for both of these teams because the Saints, if they want to bounce back and prove that they can fight, they need to beat the Colts. If the Colts want any hope of competing in the AFC South, they need to take on who the Jaguars just beat barely in the New Orleans Saints. So I'm leaning more towards the Saints get a revenge tour from the AFC South rather than Colts trying to measure up to what the Jaguars did.
Right.
It's gonna be a good game. Honestly, I'm excited for this game.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. But matchup monster on my end, I'm actually gonna go with Michael Pittman. I know I was kind of saying, hey, Michael Pittman's not really been all that spectacular, but at the same time, it seems as though him and Gardner Minshew are forming a nice connection.
Yep,
So I'm gonna go with Pittman,
I'm gonna say Alvin Kamara because I mean,
which I
he
think is
he
a great pick too.
he looked more like the wide receiver that everyone goes to on that team rather than a running back. So
Yes, that's true.
man,
Hey, Texans and Panthers. I think the Panthers are still going to remain winless.
oh yeah.
And this is the battle of the two rookie quarterbacks, but C.J. Stroud's going to get the win. And you know what? For the heck of it, let's say C.J. Stroud is the matchup monster.
See, I'm gonna go because he should be back this week. I'm gonna say Tank Dell.
Okay,
He
that's a good
should
pick
be
too.
back from injury this week, and I think these two are gonna be excited to play with each other again.
Yeah, absolutely. Browns and Seahawks. Now you have the Seahawks, I have the Browns. The biggest reason is because I'm picking the Browns is because of their defense. I feel that the Browns defense is going to be very, very good at shutting down the Seahawks offense.
Hunting down Geno Smith and making him saying, "Oh my God."
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and anyone else too, whether it's I think DK Metcalf is still hurt. So we'll see about that one. But whether it's literally if it's anyone else, whether it's, Kenneth Walker or Tyler Lockett, I think it's gonna be rough. I think Myles Garrett is gonna be out for blood. I'll give Myles Garrett my matchup monster
See,
pick there.
I will say this: JSN had one of his best games with DK Metcalf down, so there's potential there. But I'm gonna say
Yeah,
defense as well. I'm gonna say Devin Witherspoon.
that's a good pick too.
I like the defensive battle. It's very fun.
Yes, definitely. All right.
All
Okay.
right, we got
And
the
we've got
Cincinnati Bengals versus the San Francisco 49ers, and we're both saying the Bengals. I'm contributing that more so to Brock Purdy has been confirmed to be out, and honestly, that worries me for this 49ers offense.
And it looks like Brock Purdy may not be the most stellar quarterback. That's kind of been the synthesis that people have been getting with him the past two games. We'll see whether that's true or not. But the thing is I don't believe in Sam Darnold.
No, no.
And the Bengals are on the rise. So, give it to the Bengals here. Matchup monster in this game. Give me Jamar Chase.
Oh, the return of Chase. I'm going to say Higgins.
Okay, good one, too. Chiefs and Broncos. Easy pick. Chiefs. And, I don't have much else to say on that. Matchup monster for this game. Let's say it's McCole Hardman now that they've traded back for it.
Mecole Hardman. Oh, that's all in bold. I cannot type apparently. I am going to say Taylor Swift is the matchup monster.
Shut up.
No, I'm kidding. I'm going to say Rashee Rice.
Okay. Yeah, I like that pick.
He's a rookie and he's starting to prove to be one of Mahomes' top receivers to go to.
Yeah, and he might be really good in this game. I need to decide whether I want to play him or not this week.
Oh man, I think it's gonna be risky if you do, but it could pay
Yeah.
off. I will say, face Travis Kelce this past week, 30 points on me was not fun.
Yeah, right?
Ugh, it was brutal. Anyways, Baltimore Ravens and the Arizona Cardinals. This I feel like is an easy one. We're both saying the Ravens are gonna win it.
Ravens March, and more than anything, Zay Flowers. Give me him as the matchup monster.
Yeah, I think I can agree with you on that. I was gonna say Zay Flowers or Lamar himself.
Yep, that's true. That's a good pick, too. All right, Sunday Night Football, Chargers and Bears. Look, the Chargers desperately need a win to stay in this at all, and looks like the ship is still somewhat floating. You still don't have Fields there for the Bears. Not to say that Tyson Bagent is bad, but he's not great either. So, and honestly, another part that I'm going to throw in there too is this is going to be Khalil Mack's revenge game. You don't pay him, he's going to come and mess you up on the other side. So my matchup monster is Khalil Mack.
Especially with how good of a game he's been playing lately. Also, I gotta say, I think the Chargers are way better than their 2-4 record shows at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
agree
say
with that.
Eckler.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Bears defense doesn't know how to stop the run.
Nope. And Austin Eckler last week had his first game back from an injury. Didn't look the greatest, so he might be looking for a very good big bounce back game.
Actually, his second game back from injury. He came back for the Cowboys game, but
Yeah, that's right. He
let's
was
call a
fine
spade
then
a spade.
too.
Yeah. Okay, and then Monday Night Football, we've got the Raiders and the Lions. Look, Lions may have gotten blown out by the Ravens, but they're not losing to the Raiders, especially. It ain't gonna happen.
Unless we have the old Lions again.
Yeah.
All right, matchup monster for the Lions.
You know what? I'm gonna take it, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Heck yeah, I was like, if you don't take it, I will, Gibbs.
Yeah. There you have it. Those are our predictions. Now let's go into a different kind of predictions. This is for the trade deadline that's coming up on Halloween.
Woot,
So
woot.
we're going to be predicting potential trades that could take place before the deadline to help certain teams. Now, granted, we are not saying these are trades that we want to happen. Maybe a little bit we want them to happen, but we're also
Some
seeing
are
them as
wants.
potentially, yeah, some are wants, but maybe
They're,
we're just saying that they're a little bit more on the likely
they're
side.
they're wants, but they're also likely wants.
Yeah, maybe in some way, shape, or form. So Shane, let's go ahead with your picks first, and let's make it clear too that one of Shane's picks is also one of mine.
Well, yeah, yeah. So, number one, which I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about, I'm going straight into the Titans fire sale, and I'm saying they're going to trade off Derrick Henry. And it's like, huh, Derrick Henry isn't up there in age core or running back, but he is still one of the best. And I think he might go to the Baltimore Ravens, who have had a fairly injured running back room the past couple of years, and he could bolster that team a ton.
That would be wild to me if that were to happen.
And the Ravens would get so much better. The Titans would get a decent amount of hits and have gotten plenty of use out of Derrick Henry at this point. I mean,
Hey,
for me, it's a no-brainer.
yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I just think, what are the Titans going to want in return for Henry, and can the Ravens offer it?
From what I've been seeing, they're talking like a second and a third, maybe, because they understand that, yeah, even though he's good, he's almost 30 and kind of at the end of his NFL career.
Yes, but at the same time, he's a cornerstone piece
hmm
of a franchise, and they are essentially giving up everything if they give up him.
I mean, you gotta start the rebuild at some point. Do you pull the plug now and try to get more capital, or do you hold on and let your cornerstone piece die away very soon?
Yeah, it's a good point.
do you
It's
want
it's it's tough to predict, or it's tough to make the call.
do you want to do your number one? You want me to go through my whole list first?
Yeah, I'll do my number one. I feel like the Commanders are going to try and find some way to deal Chase Young to a team. Now, the big one that I've got is the Baltimore Ravens because I feel like they really want to bolster that defense
hmm
and continue to make them be at the top as far as competitors. Now, granted, as a bit of a want, I'd love for Chase Young to go to the Chicago Bears and fix their defense. But we are talking competitors here. So let's say for the sake of it, it's the Ravens. The Ravens could probably get a really good deal, maybe just only one pick that maybe even falls more back towards the fifth or sixth round picks in a way to get Chase Young, who seems like he's become very frustrated when it comes to the situation on the Commanders, and the Ravens could definitely make good use of him.
See, I could see him going to the Bears because I feel like the Bears would be able to offer a little bit more money to Chase Young.
Yes, because they have the bigger cap space,
hmm
but it just really just depends on where especially when it comes to who's actually a contender. You know what I mean? And because the Bears are not a contender.
And I will say, I did not write this down. I thought about writing it down, and I took it off. What I've been seeing is that either Chase Young is going to be shipped out, or the person opposite of him, Montez Sweat, will be shipped out. One of those two
Mm.
is looking to be shipped out, and honestly, the names I've been seeing come up for them are the Bears, the Ravens, and honestly, I've seen the Jaguars come up a few times. I don't think that's likely for either of them because I think both of their contracts will be a little too big.
Yep, I think that is a good point.
But I think one of the edge defenders in Washington is going to be shipped out soon.
Yes, I agree.
All right, I'm going to skip my number two because my number two is the same as your number four, so I'm going to go straight to my number three, which I have wide receiver Kirtland Sutton of the Broncos. Again, another fire sale going on. I think he's going to go to the Carolina Panthers to give Bryce Young, the rookie wide receiver, more help and a target for him to throw to.
I think it's an interesting pick. It's just will the Broncos bite on something from the Panthers?
I mean, I've been hearing that the Broncos are kind of throwing everything. Like earlier, they were saying, "Oh, not even Patrick Surtain will be on their trade block," and now the rumor is, "Hey, we're listening to Kirtland Sutton, we're listening to Jerry Jeudy, we're even listening to Pat Surtain for trade offers. Just tell us what you're willing to offer, and we'll talk."
Yeah,
I think
good
a
point.
wide receiver from the Broncos will be shipped out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whether it's him or Judy, which I should probably throw in here as well. I've got one for Jerry Judy, which is where he goes to the Detroit Lions as a nice, cool little pairing with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Oh man, that would be so deadly too.
It would be, and I think that'd be a really cool one and a possibility. Will it happen? I don't know. Again, it depends on what the Broncos want.
Imagine the Lions become the new Packers in the NFC North.
I don't see what's wrong with that.
Oh, I mean, the only people complaining would be Packers fans.
Yeah, well, there's many things I could say about Packers fans. We'll
Well,
just leave it
yeah.
at that.
I mean, even Tom Grossi's even to me. It's like the Lions were like the little brother that we just kicked all the time and made fun of, and now they're taller than us and we don't like it.
Right.
And I'm like, that's very accurate for the Packers and Lions relationship with one another.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyways, let me go to my number 4, and this one may come as a shock. I got quarterback
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins from the Vikings. Now, this may change because the Vikings did just win this past week, so I think that trade stock went down a little bit and not as likely anymore. But I still want to put it out here because he's on a contract year. He's getting up there in age. The Vikings haven't been doing well this year. And I think he's going to go to a quarterback needy team that could use a veteran experience. And I think a perfect landing spot would be the Atlanta Falcons.
I don't see it. For one, because Cousins waived his no trade clause, which made it seem that he was going to at least finish out the season with the Vikings. But going into next season, I believe that's a possibility.
Yeah,
The Falcons could take him.
I mean, I will say, I feel like he is going to go to the Falcons at some point, whether that's before the trade deadline or in the off season. I think he's going to be leaving the Vikings within a year.
Yes, that I definitely agree. Well, I think that that's pretty much set in stone. That's going to happen no matter what.
And if the Vikings were smart, I think they would try to get someone to bite on him and try to get a little compensation in getting rid of him in a contract year.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll see
All right.
about that one. I don't know. I feel like it's still kind of a stretch.
It is a stretch. I will admit it is a stretch. Let's get your number 2 out there.
My number 2 is Brian Burns of the Panthers goes to the Rams. The Rams essentially get a bolster at defense, which I think will be cool, pairing him up with Aaron Donald. I don't know. I just feel like this one is pretty likely just because of the possibilities of trying to strengthen the Rams, who are trying to be contenders now, and the Panthers, who are saying, well, let's get rid of some halfway decent players here.
Panthers need to afford what they can.
Yes, definitely. All right, and then let's see.
And we are getting asked,
Go.
can they franchise him? Because I can't see them waiving the trade clause without an extension. Oh, I'm guessing for Cousins probably.
Would they?
I honestly
Okay.
have no idea.
But now, let's answer that. Could they? Maybe. But would Cousins take that? Because Cousins is kind of highly paid as a QB. Signed a big deal, and could the franchise tag work?
So
I don't know if there would necessarily be something in the contract that could work.
I did just check. His current contract doesn't include a clause preventing the Vikings from tagging him. So the Vikings can tag
Okay.
Kirk Cousins, which will make this a lot more interesting then.
But they don't plan to, I think, is part of the problem.
Man, for me it's just so hard to say because I'm like, I like Cousins. I think he's been one of the best pieces on the Vikings team right now. But at the same time, he's, I think, what, 34, 35?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
I'll find that out.
Okay, well, because here's the biggest thing that
He
I think
is
also needs
35.
to be. Okay, yeah, there you go. Here's another thing that needs to be answered too. Is let's say that the Atlanta Falcons, they clearly we've talked about it earlier in this episode. We don't think Desmond Ritter's the guy. So the question is now is what do the Falcons do at QB? Let's say that perhaps they don't go in the direction of the draft and maybe they try and look at another QB. Who do they go for besides Kirk Cousins? trying to rack my brain right now as far as other quarterbacks in the NFL that might be on the market that are decent. So I'm not saying they go after someone like, let's say, Tyrod Taylor or Mitchell Trubisky. We're saying more like a starter. You know what I mean?
Let me check because we're also
Mm.
getting questions. Saying they don't have a Q. The Vikings don't really have a QB, but they have elite wide receivers. And would you go with a mid-tier quarterback, free agent, or draft or franchise him? But he does love the Falcons' Cousins idea.
Yeah, no, I think that one is definitely viable. And I really don't think the Vikings are going to stick with him. I think they're going to try and part with him.
You know, it's very
And
hard to
I
say
think,
because I'm now looking at
and I
who's
think,
available next year.
yeah, so we'll have to take a look as far as other quarterbacks who could be available next year. But I think, at least for the Vikings will draft next year.
You think they'll go quarterback draft for next year?
Yes. Now keep in mind, with that being said, there is the possibility of what if they draft, but then they franchise Kirk and keep him for 1 year.
See, I can
That's a
see that.
possibility.
I can see that because I'm
That
gonna
would be the
list like the
only
top
reason.
5 quarterbacks for next year.
Yeah. That
So
would be the only reason that they keep Cousins around for 1 more year.
yeah. So other than Cousins, because Cousins listed at number 1 for quarterback, you got Ryan Tannehill,
No.
Jacoby Brissett,
No.
Tyrod Taylor.
No.
I'm gonna skip a couple because I
Getting
think these
worse.
are bad because it's like Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock. I'm gonna skip them because I don't care about them.
Uh-huh.
You got Jameis Winston, which I'm
No.
like, don't love, but is better than a lot. I would take Winston over Tannehill personally.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I don't know. I feel like to some extent Hill's the safer option too.
Tannehill's just old. It's basically gained a downgraded Kirk Cousins in my mind.
Yes, that I'll agree with.
The last name that I would possibly say if you're not gonna get Cousins, grab this guy if all possible out of the quarterbacks that will be free agents. Baker Mayfield. Uh,
Also not good.
okay, would you rather have Sam Darnold or Drew Lock?
No, I would rather not have any of them. At that point, I could see why they would want to keep around Kirk Cousins, at least
Th-
for
this
1 more year.
this entire list is very very bad. Oh, he's also saying Matt Jones on the cheap end.
Yeah,
Oh man,
maybe.
I
Well,
ugh
while we're
ugh.
talking about that, while we're talking about it, why don't we just say you bring back Philip Rivers from retirement and sign him for cheap?
Hey, he thought about it. Although if he comes back to the NFL, he's probably gonna have another kid on the way.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, what did he have? What like 10, 11 kids when he retired?
I think the plan is to have 10 so that he can at least have a full 11-man team on the field with himself as the QB.
He has 9 children.
Yeah, he's going for number 10 so that he can have the full side, full of the offense.
I mean, he might have to do 3 more because 2 of them are, or no, never mind, would not work. He has 7 girls and 2 boys.
Hey,
Man, man.
he could feed those girls really well. They could be some beefy linemen.
I like how you went straight to lineman. You didn't go wide receiver, running back, nothing. You went straight to lineman.
Dang, a bunch of girls as an offensive line, to me that sounds terrifying.
I
That
mean,
sounds like the stuff I that actually sounds like a very scary O line that I would be like, oh yeah, no, 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 no. I don't know if I can handle this.
I mean, I don't blame you because I'm kind of in agreement with you, but that's mainly because women can be very, very scary, and women will play dirty.
Dane, let's take it a different way too. Who are you going to fear more? If in the context of the NFL, it's the last thing I'm going to bring up, and I know we've kind of made the goal of we don't really want to talk about her in our podcast. But who would you fear more? A standard O line in the NFL that you have to go up against, or a bunch of very angry Swifty fans that you just insulted by saying Taylor Swift was horrible and her
uh,
music was bad?
I mean,
I think
if you
I
watch
think I'd take the O line.
if you watch the
I think
Gridiron
I'd take the
Heights this
football.
week, where they had Travis Kelsey tied up and they're like, get rid of the Kelly Green jerseys of the Eagles or face the Swifties. And Travis Kelsey's like, I'll face the Swifties.
He died. And he died.
Oh, man. I respect Travis Kelsey. I'm just like, man, I love this man so much. He has taken the Swifty hate in stride. Anyways, let's go to
Anyway.
our last trade prediction.
Yeah, this is our very last one that we need to wrap up with. We both agree on this one, and that is the Vikings ship off Danielle Hunter to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it's a good pick. Bolsters the defense for the Jaguars. We both agree that's something that I think should totally happen, and I think it will.
I want it to happen so bad because then Josh Allen gets an elite person opposite of him, which he's having a good season already. He had a phenomenal season when he had Calais Campbell on the opposite side of him. And yes, I know people are going to say, oh, well, you guys got Trayvon Walker last year. Thing is, yes, we got him. He hasn't been proving to be phenomenal on the edge. But he's been doing good, but I don't think he's blown anybody away. You put Danielle Hunter
Mm-hmm.
on the opposite end of Josh Allen and move Trayvon Walker into the middle. I mean, three big, beefy defensive linemen coming at you can be terrifying.
Yeah, I like that pick. That's a good idea.
Oh man, I want to see this happen so bad because if that happens, the Jaguars defense has already looked to be very, very strong this season. And to
Mm-hmm.
increase the pass rush, which has been their weakest point this season, man, that defense is going to be very reminiscent of the 2017 Jaguars defense, if not better.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's one way to think about it.
I mean, I also just love talking about my team, and I will sit there forever.
Oh yeah, we know.
Don't worry, I'm getting off my pedestal and my soapbox now. I'm not going on it for too long.
I know.
Hey, I
All
mean,
right,
we,
with
we
that
gotta
being
take the
said,
soapbox away from you when it comes to college or basketball.
we never talk about basketball on here. Get out of
We
here. Get
have,
out of here.
we have maybe twice.
Not enough. Not enough.
But when we do get on to basketball,
Oh, I will not shut up. That I agree with.
but
And
with
I did go on the pedestal when it came to college football tonight, so you got me there.
I mean, here's the thing. The college football one tonight I feel like was warranted and justified because I mean, we were talking about rookies and people becoming rookies next year. So, I don't count you
True.
against that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
You got to pass today, but yes.
Don't make a habit out of it, is what you're saying.
I mean, football's football. I just prefer the NFL.
Yes, we know. I've tried to convince you before, and you've said no
I
to do college.
my thing with college, I feel like sometimes the rules make it too easy, and I really, really don't understand the whole ranking system that they have in place. It just does not click in my head.
Yeah, but that's all up to scrutiny anyway, and people still love it, especially when it comes. Another thing that's up to be, debated is the playoff format, which is changing too. So I'm just saying, there's always a possibility for change.
Hey, I mean, if I'm like at somebody's house and there's a college football game on, I'll watch it because I'll watch football, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to watch it.
Yeah, I understand. We've basically just come to that understanding that's how things are going to be for you. It's all right. I'll get
Hey,
over it.
hey, at least I have a college football team that I will root for. You gotta give me or credit there.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I'll take it.
Good old Florida Gators.
Oh man, must be sad for you. All
Hey,
right, but with that though,
I was gonna say, hey,
we need to wrap this up.
all right. With that, everybody, we will see you guys next time.
Have a good night.